panel, we have an STO discussion, global regulations for new capital markets. And I would like to invite our moderator, Rajal, co-founder of Hybrid Summit, on stage.
Hey everyone, this is I'm sure everyone's excited about this panel, global regulations, and especially with the movement towards the STO market, we all want to know what does it take to be regulated, what countries are supporting these regulations, and more importantly, what are the steps and how long is the process. So we have a very esteemed panel of guests. I want to start with the director of Abaca, the Asian Blockchain and Crypto Association. Please help me welcome Mel Sanko up on the stage. We have attorney Joy Alameda, corporate secretary for Cezzah. Ulf Carlson, general manager, head of North Asia and Japan, NASDAQ. And Tony Tong, co-founder and co-chair of Hong Kong Blockchain Association. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. So there's a lot to go over, and we're very excited to have you all here representing different parts of what it would take to be successful in this space. But let's start with Cezzah. Right. There's been a lot of news about Cezzah. Philippines is very progressive in terms of crypto and legislation. We're very excited to see the progress and development that the Philippines has made. And so maybe we can start with Attorney Joy, which is again the corporate secretary for Cezzah Board of Directors. Tell us a little bit about Cezzah and how everything's coming along there.
All right. Cezzah stands for Cagayan Economic Zone Authority. It's essentially a special economic zone located in the northernmost part of the Philippines. It has its own legislative charter, which allows us to do or issue out business rules and regulations that would generate investment flows into the area. So May of last year, we introduced several rules that would govern virtual currency exchanges, fintech solution platforms, as well as, recently, we have issued out rules on digital asset and token offerings. So basically, that's the development in Cezzah that we have right now. And we have currently 23 principal licensees and 7 licensees that would want to do STOs and other token offering initiatives.
Great, and you're seeing obviously a significant interest in the security token space, right? Yes. So a lot of these exchanges are now pivoting and looking for that type of licensing and approval in their zone.
In the zone, yes.
Fantastic. Mel, if you could talk to us about Abaca, so the SRO that's working with Cezzah. Can you tell us a little bit about Abaca and that process?
Yeah, so Abaca has just been recently appointed as the SRO for Cezzah. What that composes, the membership is really composed of all the license holders in Cezzah, as well as the third-party service providers who are offering their services to Cezzah. What that does for Cezzah, it basically gives us, real hand knowledge of what the market's looking for, which helps us react very quickly. So when we decided to do the STO rules, which are part of the digital asset and token offering rules, we went out and talked to all the other license holders. We went to talk to other people who are interested to see what kind of rules would be needed to make this happen in Cezzah quicker than what the other jurisdictions are doing. So with that, we then partnered with various law firms, Hawley Nethercoat, Norton Rose Fulbright, to really get the best and brightest behind this and say, okay, while Philippines probably has a last mover advantage, that means that we also don't have much legacy in the way, and so we can actually build it from the start with a solid foundation that would be future-proof. So that while the other jurisdictions are catching up, we've already kind of done that extra step and gone ahead so that people would be much more inclined to come to Cezzah.
Wonderful. And when you say service providers, what's unique about the zone is you guys are accrediting more than just licensees for exchanges.
Yes.
There are accredited service providers. And the idea is obviously to protect the consumer and make sure that anybody that's within the zone develops a very strong reputation of providing the very best for the clients.
Yeah, even the service providers go through their own probity check to make sure these guys are not some fly-by-night entity.
Right.
So everyone that deals with anyone within the zone has to be an Abaca member. One that, like you said, that makes it safe for all parties involved.
Right.
but it also then gets us to build that credibility about who's coming into the zone.
And it's amazing. So it's filtering out a lot of the noise in the space.
Yes.
I think we all have experienced from 2016 to 2018 a lot of the ICO craze and how hard it was to figure out which one the real companies were that were going to become relevant and were operating good companies versus the ones that are all about hype. Speaking of service providers, I'm going to kind of go to Alf here. Alf, your company probably needs no introduction. By far one of the most robust and experienced and incredible trading systems in the world through NASDAQ. I know you've had 22 years of experience there. Can you tell us about what NASDAQ is doing and how you guys are adapting to this crypto market?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here. I think that NASDAQ as a company, we have a brand and a reputation, but maybe it's hard to know exactly what we do in our sense. We are more than a stock market in the US today and an index that is very common. We are in the core a technology company and foremost I would say a governance and regulatory company. We are self-regulating our own exchanges. We have 33 exchanges run under the NASDAQ brand, and we provide technology to more than 100 external clients, exchanges, 30 here in Asia Pacific, for example. And most regulators are surveilling, policing, you can say, their markets based on our technology in real time, every day. So we are seeing when it comes to blockchain related marketplaces, when it comes to tokenized or crypto markets, we have seen that we can play a role. And we are now working with quite a few clients and many prospects in all around the world. But the role we play, I think, is when you go from wanting to be more transparent, wanting to be more regulated, acting in a regulatory environment, that's when we can help. Because we know what that is, and we know what those requirements are, and we know what the regulators would like to see, and the regulators are using the tools that we are supplying to them. So I think that's where we come in. When you want to be a regulated market in an open manner, then we can help and assist.
It's even more important now, especially with security tokens. There's a lot of layers of compliance that are needed. And so I'm sure you guys have seen the space with the emergence of so many different crypto utility exchanges. I'm sure you probably sat back and go, this is interesting. And I know that we've talked to you guys several times about how important the role that you guys will be playing in the future markets, especially with the shift to STOs. So thank you for that overview, Alf. Tony, the co-founder and co-chairman of Hong Kong Blockchain Association, you've been a very active voice in the community, not just in Hong Kong, but quite globally. And we appreciate you having you here as well to join us. Can you tell us about what you've seen in the space from an industry standpoint, how companies are shifting and the demand has been shifting from ICOs to STOs?
Yeah, Hong Kong has been very active in the ICO fundraising for the last couple of years, but as we all know, many projects from China came to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong has one of the freest economies in the world. But along with the ban in China back in 2017, September 4th, I remember that day, so that forced a lot of the formerly leading exchanges, crypto exchanges from Beijing to move. Some of them moved to Tokyo, some of them moved to other places. Recently, I know one of the leading crypto exchanges that started in Beijing actually got a Cezzah license. So we, in Hong Kong, we're here to help the community, help the developers, projects, and also the investors, because Hong Kong traditionally has been one of the leading places for fundraising, especially in terms of capital market IPO. Last year, Hong Kong's IPO market actually raised more money than the US in terms of IPO fundraising. And a long time ago, back in 2000, I was during the first wave of internet development boom. I was a developer, and I brought one of my companies that I founded called PacificNet listed on NASDAQ. So I'm also familiar. I'm looking forward to seeing NASDAQ to also evolve into a crypto exchange, hopefully sometime soon.
Who knows?
So,
Yeah, and so you're probably, you have a very good pulse on the regulatory environment in Hong Kong. What do you see as far as licensing is being issued from Hong Kong?
just 2 weeks ago, we actually held our first annual summit, Hong Kong Blockchain Association annual summit at the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And we welcome regulators to join our association, and as our honorary chairman, one of the senior team of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange actually joined us. And so the topic was embracing regulation. So Hong Kong actually, I'm currently also with another listed company called Madison Group. We are one of the few listed companies that's involved in blockchain investment, and we invest in crypto exchanges. So we have, in Hong Kong, we have the Type 1, Type 9 license. So currently, about 3 months ago, Hong Kong SFC, Securities Futures Commission, announced a sandbox regulation. So that allows, previously, many people just engaged in this gray area because there's no regulation. In Hong Kong, anything that's illegal, that's not illegal, is legal. So, but a lot of the bigger exchanges want to come to Hong Kong and actually work with the regulators and get an official permit or license. So we are working with the government, and Hong Kong SFC has announced this sandbox regulation. And we are seeing some of the crypto exchanges are, and also the traditional brokerage firms, asset management firms are in the process of working with the regulator. And so hopefully soon, I don't expect Hong Kong as a leader because Hong Kong has a very big IPO traditional stock market. So it's not an innovator, but Hong Kong SAR government, I think, also understands that if it falls too much behind, it would fall behind Japan or Singapore or other places. So I think that there's some catch up to do in terms of regulation.
And I guess this could be to anyone on the panel. I think one of the biggest, I guess, challenges that from regulation standpoint is the relationships with the banks. How have you seen that progress? Because to get a license or even a sandbox or provisional in any of these regions, do you guys sense that the banks are starting to cooperate in respecting the issuances for these licenses? Maybe, you know, it's open to anyone to answer. It's a tough question, but everybody wants to know.
I'll just jump in. Hong Kong, very difficult. HSBC and all the banks, they look for any company or people involved in crypto exchanges. You see accounts getting closed frequently. So it's not easy.
Yeah. Joy, you want to add to that?
Yes, it has not also been easy in the Philippines. We have a lot of banks who are part of the legacy system before, and they're not really looking forward to accommodating cryptocurrencies as of yet. So anything that is not legal tender, it won't start to recognize. But then we have a couple of banks who are forward-thinking and are actually working with us to build this ecosystem in Cezzah. So.
Great, wonderful. And I think banking has to catch up now, which is kind of odd where you have a commercial bank that's catching up to the legislators.
Right, yeah.
But they have to work hand in hand. And I think undoubtedly, guys, the STO side will help with that process, because one of the things with crypto, which we all know, was it's such an unregulated environment. It was very risky for these banks to work with these crypto exchanges, whereas now it's very fully outlined, or becoming very outlined, as far as the processes, compliance, and all the things that are necessary. Let me turn it to you, Mel.
I think one thing that will help, though, what we've been doing at Abaca over the past couple months is we've been going around and meeting some of the other regulators, some of the other SROs. So within the last month, we've signed an MOU with the Taiwan SRO through Congressman Jason Shu. In the last, at Hong Kong Blockchain Association's summit, we signed an MOU with HKBA. And what that's starting is we want to build a network, right? And we want to work together with all the other jurisdictions, basically to say, how can we come together as a united front? How can we prove to them that we have the right regulation in place, that we're doing thorough background checks on all the people that we're involved with, so that the banks feel safe, right? I mean, I understand they need to protect their business, and I think if we're able to assure them that that we're able to check off all those boxes for them, then they'll start to come around. And we're, like Joy said, we're starting to meet a few of those banks now who want to set up in Cezzah. So that's also the beauty of Cezzah, is that they have a mandate as part of their charter where they could allow offshore banking units to come into Cezzah.
Very, very good. Alf, can you tell me about some of the, I know you guys sell different parts of software and surveillance systems, trading systems and stuff like that. Where do you see the demand is for these new crypto exchanges?
So often the demand starts with surveillance systems. It's so we are working with maybe a handful today that uses a software, and they, I think Gemini in the US was one that was publicly announced some time ago, and that comes from that you want to be able to show that you are a transparent market. You are not doing wash trades. There is rules that are followed by the trading participants in your market, and in that way you gain trust. So using those tools that are used by regulators in most jurisdictions, used by the exchanges to control the flow, but it's also used by the brokers and the buy side to all verify the flows coming in and out of the marketplace. So that's a natural start. Then when it comes to matching engines and exchange grade matching infrastructure that we provide to markets like the Japan exchange and Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia in this region, of course it can be overkill for a small crypto market. But I think if you're going to be regulated at some point, the regulator have much easier to understand what we can provide. And we try to adjust our offerings so that it will suit those smaller marketplaces, give them ability to grow, but mostly provide standards. And standards in our world is to be ready to connect to any financial institution or have software that is connectable through ISVs, i.e. have common interfaces, common structures, and then it's easier to get a license from a regulator. That is something well known. So our offerings today are fully cloud-based for matching engine and surveillance, and post-trade will be launched this year, and they can be offered as a service. So that is a long way from where we were a couple of years ago entering this business. But it's been forcing us to take what we have but repackage it so it suits a new type of clients that have a much faster time to market than you have for a traditional exchange and a traditional regulated exchange with licensed products. And I think we enjoyed the journey. It's a very different pace, but we feel that our core software is there. It's just packaged in a different way, and then it can suit well.
Thank you. And you guys will be supporting different chains, obviously.
Yeah.
I know Ethereum has been the main one so far for a lot of these STOs, but Stellar, Raven, and a few others are.
We do. We started out early on the blockchain journey back in 2013, and try to understand and learn how it could, if disrupt our industry. So I think everybody started from that point of view. We invested in Chain.com and used their blockchain in the beginning. We built a private market in California that we run and operate for private companies, and it was a good environment to start with because we controlled everything. It's unregulated. We were the regulator, and we together with Citi built an infrastructure that exchanged contracts and shares, but also did payments on with the help of their digital currencies that were inserted into. So full DVP solution that's been up and running for now a couple of years. So that's where we started, and it started with our own markets and where we had full control of the process.
Thank you. And you made a good point about common protocol. I think one of the, I came from a conference last month with a lot of the big influencers, and T0 is represented there, Polymath, and several other tokenization platforms. I think the theme was definitely collaboration. One of the issues, and we'll talk about it in a different session, really was the liquidity and the secondary market trading for STOs. It's going to take time to mature, but I think it's important that if there's some commonality between the different platforms and there's collaboration between the global exchanges worldwide to create a bigger liquidity pool, that would be much better for the consumer. But I think that's going to start with the things that you're doing, Mel, to make sure that we have a standard that globally that people can follow from a compliance standpoint, from a technology standpoint, et cetera. And I think you're seeing more and more of that today, where you're reaching out to different SROs. I know Cezzah is also looking at other different jurisdictions and what they're doing from a regulatory standpoint. And it would be amazing if, as a world, we came together and figured this out and created that standard so people could trade on similar systems, they could communicate together and then share liquidity. Because I think that's going to be important for the growth of the STO market. Couple more questions, and then maybe we can open up some audience members. What is the most important things that you guys are looking for when you are onboarding or approving a client in Cezzah?
Well, first we require an offer document to be submitted. Basically, it is like a certification as to how you legitimize or how will you go about to legitimize all your proposed efforts in your STO. So we have, I don't want to go to the specifics, but aside from the offer document, we're also asking for certifications from digital asset agents and also experts all around the world that could say that you are a platform that could actually onboard intangible or tangible assets to back your tokens. So essentially, that's it. For you to prove that you are a legitimate exchange or token offering that could service clients all over the world. So.
And Mel, you were mentioning also the checks on the technology, the platforms as well. You guys do quite a bit of due diligence on that.
So yeah, beyond submitting your company history and the profiles and your business plan, we go a step further, right, to actually go through and audit all your platforms to make sure they're working the way that they're supposed to be working, as you've said that they're working. We're working with leading providers to do audits on your cybersecurity plans, your data privacy plans, your physical plans, physical security plans, as well as business continuity. Because what's happening, I came from the .com world, and you saw the crash that happened because people weren't prepared for how to operationalize. Everyone had great ideas, and there was a lot of noise and a lot of money being built or being put up behind this. But when it came down to actually operationalizing, these guys weren't prepared. And so what we're doing now is we're trying to move everything as far upstream as possible, so that as we're even looking at your application for the license, we already know that you have everything in place to do what it is that you want to do. And then beyond that, Cezzah goes through an approval process of every business plan, every STO that's being submitted. Again, getting legal opinions from experts, as well as the DA agents. So while Cezzah has provided this framework and this ecosystem for all of us to operate, what Abaca now is doing on top of that is then creating a code of conduct so that people then know how to interpret these rules. What is allowed and isn't allowed under this jurisdiction. And if there's something that hasn't been addressed yet, then we go straight to Cezzah and work together with them on, okay, how do we update the regulation to be able to accommodate this? So while most people are focused on doing a sandbox for their own little community or their own country, we're really looking to be a sandbox for the rest of the world, so that if people come with innovative ideas and new forms of projects, we would like to hear about it and find a way to make that work. Again, all within that same framework and regulatory structure, so that rather than operating like the wild, wild east, where everybody is just kind of running around without regulation, there are tons of people coming to us who want to be regulated, right? Because they want to know that they don't have to look over their shoulder. They're able to operate their businesses. Their customers feel safe investing in their projects. And then, the other institutions like the banks would then say, hey, look, we like what these guys are doing, and we'll stand behind that.
From an oversight perspective on the issuance, this is my last question. What is that process? Because I think one of the most important things, especially in this new market of STOs, that exchanges take the responsibility to list only relevant projects that have the best chance of success. Similar to a public listing, right? There's audited financial requirements, there's a minimum trading volume, or there's minimum capital asset requirements, et cetera, for a NASDAQ listing. What are we looking for as far as minimal thresholds for issuances?
We have, do I go to the tiers?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Okay, so under rules, we have 3 tiers. So if you were going to offer an initiative that would cost around $5 million US, then you are tier 1. For tier 2, it's more than $5 million to less than $10 million. And then for tier 3, that's $10 million or more. So for each tier, there are specific requirements. As you go along, then for tier 3, we have the most strictest and stringent regulations to govern that kind of offering. So it will depend on what kind of initiative that you'd want to do.
Excellent. Great, great. Well, I think that's all for all of us. I hope you guys enjoyed the session. We thank you so much, all of you, for your time. Ulf, Tony, Joy, and Mel, they'll be here shortly after this to answer any questions. You can please feel free to go up to them. And thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for this panel. We appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand up. On
Sitting or standing? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, here, ready. Now,